From Tokyo, Japan and Abu Dhabi, UAE, this is Down to Business English, business news to improve your business English, with your hosts Skip Montreux and Des Morgan.
Good to be talking with you again, Des. How is everything with you?
Well, I'm down to my final 2 weeks in Abu Dhabi.
Ah, that's right. You are leaving the UAE and heading back to the UK. How many years has it been for you over there?
Oh, it feels like forever, but in actual fact, I've lived here for 8 years.
That is half as long as you were in Japan.
That's right.
Is there anything you want to do before leaving the country?
Yes, but it's really still too hot to do anything outdoors.
The temperature has always been an issue for you over there. Here, it is getting into the mid-30s. Hot and humid, but we can still function outdoors.
But even in Japan, though, you can't spend that long outside. You need to travel from one air-conditioned place to another in the summer, right?
Yeah, that's right. And if the air conditioning in your home or office breaks down, watch out. Life becomes pretty hot and sweaty pretty quickly.
If it breaks down here, you'd have to move into a hotel for a few days. There's no way you could live without air conditioning.
That is hard for me to imagine.
When I lived in Japan, I thought it was hot, but the heat over here is unbelievable. I often wonder what it was like living in the Middle East in the age before air conditioners. Like I said, over here, AC is not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Well, here in Japan, sure, it would be very uncomfortable to get through the summer without AC. Not as bad as the UAE, but pretty bad. I don't know about you, Des, but I certainly take AC for granted.
Well, it's easy enough to do. But if you stop and think about it, air conditioning is a huge part of the infrastructure of many places in the world.
Which means it is also a huge business sector.
Absolutely.
My electricity bill skyrockets in the summer. I can only assume that your bill must be astronomical in Abu Dhabi.
Well, electricity can get pricey if you have a big house, but not so bad as I don't. It's a good thing that energy costs are as reasonable as they are, because otherwise AC would be prohibitively expensive. But you're right, we often don't pay much attention to air conditioning, when in fact it's actually quite an interesting business.
And it makes for a good topic today.
I agree.
So, let's do it. Let's get D2B, down to business, with the business of air conditioning. What is the history of this modern marvel? And what effect is air conditioning having on the world?
So, Skip, I bet you that most people don't even know who invented air conditioning. Do you?
I do, actually. It was the ancient Egyptians.
The Egyptians, what?
Yeah, in ancient Egypt, they would commonly hang reeds in the windows of their buildings and then slowly drip cold water on the reeds. As the water evaporated, the wind would blow cool, humid air into the building.
That reminds me of Agra Fort, which overlooks the Taj Mahal. It had an ancient air conditioning system where cold water flowed between an inner wall and an outer wall to cool the building in the daytime. However, these examples don't really answer my question. I asked, who invented the modern air conditioning that we use today?
Well, that would be when the ancient Romans started going into...
No, not ancient Roman air conditioning, modern. Who invented the electric AC that is hanging on the wall in your apartment right now?
Oh, you mean the modern electric air conditioner. Who invented that technology?
Yes, who invented that?
Why didn't you say so sooner? The modern AC was invented in 1902 by Willis Carrier in Buffalo, New York.
Finally!
However, although Mr. Carrier is known for inventing the air conditioner, he based his invention on earlier developments that were made by some pretty famous scientists.
Famous scientists, such as?
Well, none other than the famous polymath and one of the founding fathers of the United States, Benjamin Franklin.
Is that right?
Yes. Back in 1758, Franklin conducted an experiment where the evaporation of a volatile liquid was used to drive down the temperature of the surrounding air as the liquid evaporated.
I guess that's why alcohol feels cold if you spill it on your hand.
Sure, alcohol is a volatile liquid, but it's probably best not to spill any of your whiskey, Des.
Oh, I try not to.
The next development in AC technology was when the English scientist and inventor Michael Faraday discovered that compressed liquid could be used to chill air when it was allowed to evaporate. Carrier put both of these ideas together and created what we now know as modern air conditioning.
It must have been a strange sensation to be one of the first people to sit in an air-conditioned office, knowing that it was much hotter outside.
Surprisingly, AC wasn't initially used for making people comfortable, but rather was developed for the printing industry.
I didn't know that paper was quite so fussy about heat.
Well, maybe not about heat, but certainly it was fussy about humidity.
Of course, moisture and paper are not a good combination.
The Sackett and Wilhelms printing company in Buffalo, New York, contacted a heating company to try and solve their humidity problem.
And let me guess, Willis Carrier worked at that company?
He did. And he discovered that circulating air over coils that were chilled by compressed ammonia maintained the humidity at a constant 55%.
And in addition to reducing the humidity, it also cooled the air as well?
That it did. But the first applications were for industrial processes that were very sensitive to humidity.
Like the printing industry. What other industries needed air conditioning?
Flour mills. As you can imagine, damp flour is very difficult to process. And also Gillette, the company that makes razor blades for shaving. They found their blades quickly rusted if the atmosphere was too humid.
Very interesting. I had no idea that the initial impetus for air conditioning was for industrial processes, not human comfort.
It is interesting, isn't it?
So that's a little of the history of air conditioners. Let's talk more about changes in air conditioning over the years.
Come on, Des. Japan has had air conditioning since the 1950s. I'm not sure how much it has really changed.
Well, the climate's changed. That's why they call it climate change after all.
Very clever.
Get this. According to climatologists, 16 of the 17 warmest years on record have occurred since 2001. So, as you can imagine, world demand for air conditioning has gone through the roof and shows no signs of slowing down either. As a matter of fact, the energy consumed by air conditioning is likely to triple between now and 2050.
Wow, where did you get that statistic?
That's what the IEA, the International Energy Agency, says.
Well, that doesn't sound very good.
Not at all. And to put that into perspective, it would mean that by 2050, the world's air conditioners would be using the current electricity capacity of the US, the European Union and Japan combined.
That sounds even worse.
The challenge then is for engineers to make air conditioners more efficient.
I would hope so.
On a personal note, when we lived in a really old house here in Abu Dhabi, the cost of running the air conditioning was 3 times what it cost in our newer apartment. Some of that is because the new place is smaller, but some of that reduction must have been due to improvements in efficiency.
Your newer apartment has a newer air conditioner, I suppose.
Yeah, it does.
How are they making air conditioners more efficient?
Researchers at Stanford University have found that panels covered in highly reflective material can be used to cool water to a few degrees less than the outside temperature.
And is that a significant development?
It would probably not be enough to cool a building, at least not in very hot countries. However, if the air intake into a conventional air conditioner passed through these cooled water pipes, then efficiency of that unit could be improved by 30 to 50%.
That sounds promising. Is this technology only at the experimental stage?
No. The researchers set up a company called SkyCool Systems to try and commercialize the process.
Let's hope they are able to bring it to the marketplace sooner rather than later.
However, there are new technologies that improve the efficiency of air conditioning that are currently on the market. Samsung has developed a technology called wind-free that gently pushes air around a room once the desired temperature has been reached.
So no need for an energy-hungry circulation fan.
Exactly. At a simpler level, many of the latest air conditioners use an inverter that adjusts the strength of the fan, slowing it down when the desired temperature has been reached.
Air conditioners with inverters are pretty upmarket though.
Yes, they are pretty expensive, and buyers in most developing countries just want the cheapest unit they can get.
Which, of course, is understandable.
True, but technology may be able to help here as well, though.
Really? How is that?
There's a thermostat that you can buy with a smart app that you can run on your phone. It's made by a company called Tado, and it connects your AC to the internet.
Of course, the Internet of Things.
There are many advantages to this. Firstly, it can sense when you leave the room and turn the AC down or even off.
Oh, I often forget to turn the AC off when I go out. That would certainly save me some money.
Secondly, it can adjust the temperature based on the weather forecast. So the room would never be too cold, wasting energy till you adjust it. I'm sure there are similar apps available in Japan.
I will have to look into that. I wonder if there's an app that can sense when we press record when we make this podcast. How many times have we forgotten to turn off the AC when we record a show together and have ended up with a noisy fan going off in the background?
Yeah, that would be useful. But as you know, just turning the AC off while we are recording, it can get unbearably hot over here.
Well, before we move on to vocabulary, I would like to mention a connection with something I recently read in the New York Times. Well, I read it recently, but the article was actually from 2018. Des, I have a question for you. Which factory in North America do you think has some of the highest rates of absenteeism and the lowest morale?
I have no idea, but as it's connected with the story, I'm guessing it's an air conditioning factory.
Well done. It is none other than the Carrier air conditioner plant in Indiana.
Named after Willis Carrier, the inventor of air conditioning?
That's right. Now, let me ask you this. Why do you think morale is so low?
Carrier doesn't pay very well?
No, the salaries are comparable to other AC companies.
Long working hours?
Again, comparable to other factory situations.
Then I give up.
President Trump.
President Trump? What does he have to do with the morale at the Carrier plant?
Well, it was this factory that was going to be moved to Mexico in 2017, and the then newly elected president stepped in to save the employees' jobs.
Okay, you would have thought they would be happy about that.
Well, initially they were, but as it turned out, the company is still planning to move most of the jobs to Mexico. So, all of the noise Trump made about saving their jobs was just that. Noise.
That is twice recently that Donald Trump has worked his way into our report. It's funny how that happens.
It is. Well, before you melt away with no AC running over there in Abu Dhabi, I think it is now time for us to get D2V, down to vocabulary.
Down to Business English audio scripts are a great learning tool. Be sure to visit the D2B website and download your free audio script of today's podcast. downtobusinessenglish.com. That's www.downtobusinessenglish.com.
are a man of many talents, aren't you?
I would like to think so. I'm a teacher, podcaster, poker player, and, well, all-around great guy. Does that qualify me as a polymath?
I'm not sure, but our first word is polymath, which means skilled in many different areas. In the story, Skip spoke about Benjamin Franklin, who was most certainly a polymath. He was an inventor, a business tycoon, a writer, and, as we all know, a politician. As for you, Skip, I'm not sure if you're truly a polymath, sorry.
Well, maybe not compared with Ben Franklin.
The word polymath may not be often used in business conversation, but if you ever wanted to praise your boss, tell him that you think he's a polymath. Who knows, he might give you a raise. Hey, it's worth a try.
I'm sure my boss would not know what it means. I would now like to talk about the verb to evaporate. When a substance evaporates, it changes from liquid form to a gas. As we all know, water evaporates if it sits too long in the sun.
Nothing would ever dry if it didn't.
In the story, Des spoke about how a compressed liquid can be used to cool the surrounding area when it evaporates.
That is the literal meaning of evaporate, but it's often used to mean when something disappears without you noticing. Money evaporates out of my wallet when I spend any time in London, for example.
You know, good ideas evaporate out of my head when I'm under stress.
Oh, me too. Next, we have the verb phrase to put something into perspective, which means to make a comparison that shows the true extent of something. In the story, I showed just how much electricity would be used by the world's air conditioners by putting the amount into the perspective of how many countries use the same amount of energy.
In my office, we have been thinking of upgrading some of the software that we use. Although it will be quite a large expense, when you put it into the perspective of how much time everyone will save, it really doesn't seem so bad.
Hey, that's a good example.
Now I would like to talk about the verb to commercialize. When you commercialize something, you take an idea or invention and try to make money from it by getting people to pay for it.
In the story, I spoke about how SkyCool Systems was seeking to commercialize their invention by selling it to property developers or air conditioning manufacturers.
And in the early days of the internet, people wondered how companies like Google were going to commercialize their dominance in the search engine business.
Well, we now know it's by selling personal data and those endless adverts.
Now, we don't know for certain that they are selling our personal data.
Of course they are. But anyway, let me finish today with the adjective upmarket, which means the high end or luxury end of the market.
In the story, Des reported how air conditioners with an inverter were more expensive or upmarket than basic AC models.
The opposite of upmarket is, of course, downmarket. In the UK, we have a really downmarket newspaper called The Sun, which is more concerned with celebrity gossip than with any real news.
Fortunately, there's nothing downmarket about our podcast.
Would you like to support Down to Business English? Be sure to visit the D2B page in iTunes and subscribe to this show. While you are there, why don't you leave a rating and a comment? This will help D2B reach more people wanting to improve their business English skills. Down to Business English. Business news to improve your business English.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Down to Business English.
Yes, it does. And even though it's been great talking with you, Skip, I'm ready to crank my AC and cool this place down.
Well, I won't keep you too much longer. I just want to remind listeners to sign up for a D2B membership.
Oh yes, we can't forget to do that. If you find listening to Down to Business English useful in your English studies, we highly recommend becoming a D2B member.
Absolutely. Each membership includes members-only podcasts, access to our entire audio script library, and instant delivery of audio scripts to newly released episodes.
And not only do you get all of that, your membership helps us to produce more D2B language learning content.
That's right. The more members we have, the more episodes of D2B and other English learning products we can produce.
How does one become a D2B member?
Simple. Just visit the Down to Business English website at downtobusinessenglish.com, click on the membership link at the top of the page, and choose the plan that best fits your budget.
One more time, that's downtobusinessenglish.com.
Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Have a comment or question about today's show? Don't be shy. Visit the D2B website or the Facebook page and post any comments or questions there. Skip, Des, or Samantha will be sure to leave a reply. Want to get even more down to business English? Sign up for the D2B newsletter and receive updates on some of the stories covered on Down to Business English. That's www.downtobusinessenglish.com. Down to Business English. Business news to improve your business English.